Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. Today's quote vault is from Dan Hardy. The best investment you can possibly make for your economic future is in your own personal development.
So let me talk to you next about how I develop my skills. Here's what I see as the great gap between the haves and the have-nots, and it will get wider and wider and wider. The path to the American dream used to be very simple. Get the highest education, get a good job, climb the ladder, get a pension, get the house with the white picket fence. Easy, 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 no big deal. Well, today, the world is flat. We're all technically connected to each other. Now your competition isn't the business down the street. It isn't your local chamber of commerce. It's every chamber of commerce in the world, as well as every second bedroom and basement occupied by a teenager and a laptop. They're all your competition. That has set up this epic opportunity of better than ever in human history. It has also created epic competition. So it is not going to be your academic degree, and it's certainly not going to be your corporate training that's going to give you the advantage. It is going to be your ever developing and evolving skills, your emotional resilience, your ability to adapt to change, your ability to present, your ability to communicate, your ability to network, your ability to develop personal brand. I'm talking to the choir because you're here. But at the same time, this is the great divide. Few people will have the ability to proactively go out and develop their skills. And so the have-nots will get bigger, but the haves will also get bigger. And the bridge between that gap is a skills gap. So let me tell you the philosophy that I learned very early on when I was 18 years old. Somebody said, here's how you want to structure your financial life. It's a 10-10 plan. So you want to take the first 10% of any money you make and you want to give it back to help others. We've all heard that, right? Tithe 10% to help others. But this is the other key point. You want to take the other 10% and you want to tithe it to yourself. You want to use 10% of every dollar you make and reinvest it in your own personal development. Now, when I made $150,000 a year as an 18-year-old, $15,000, no big deal. You make $500,000, $50,000, you make $1 million, $100,000, you make several million. It becomes more and more difficult to spend that kind of money. However, interestingly enough, the top CEOs, the top athletes, the Olympic champions, they all have the highest paid coaches they can find. Why? Because they know that that is the separating factor to them going on and becoming world champions. So take 10%. This is how you fund your skill development. 10% of all your income goes back into reinvesting in your own personal development. Brian Tracy, very early on when I was still a teenager, I learned this from him. He said, for every dollar you invest in your personal development, it adds at least $30 to your bottom line. Now, where can you go get a 3,000% ROI anywhere in the financial markets today? Where can you get a 300%? Where can you get a 30%? So instead of putting it in your 401k, instead of putting it into the savings account or buying equities or stocks, trust me, the best investment you possibly can make for your economic future, for your retirement plan, is to invest it in your own evolving personal development. So we talked about the mind, and let me just give you two things to just always run it through. There are two things you need to do with your mind. There's an old Cherokee tale. Grandfather's talking to his grandson, and he says, grandson, inside each of us are two wolves, and they are at war with each other. And one wolf is a bad wolf. It's angry, it's fearful, it's nasty, it's lazy. And then there is a good wolf, and it is giving and loving and abundant and disciplined. And the grandchild looks up at the grandfather and says, well, which wolf is going to win? And the grandfather smiles and said, whichever you feed. Inside each of us is a bad wolf and a good wolf. Anything you see on news media, any heinous act you see other human beings doing to the world or to each other, inside each of us lies that potentiality. Everything you see is a part of your nature as well. But what gets demonstrated determines what's been fed. My mentor, Jim Rohn, said, you got to take the worst of your nature and drive it into a small corner. And you got to take the best of our nature and you need to build it and embolden it and make it and grow it. And so realize at all times you are feeding one of these two wolves inside of you. And the one that will win is the one that you feed the most. So number one is protect your mind. Go like this with your mind as much as possible. I personally do not ever listen to any news media at all whatsoever. I know that some people think that's crazy and it makes you ignorant and all the rest of that crap. I seem to be doing pretty good. I am really cognizant that inside is an 8-year-old brain, and I do not want it subject to just whatever news media wants to fill it. Now, I just suggest for you, go on a news media diet. If you need to figure out what's going on for 20 minutes, be very selective, fine, but protect it vigilantly. Because it will be the path to your door. I mean, I can't walk through an airport without Wolf Blitzer being on. And he's throwing the situation room. The world's coming to an end. Every freaking 5 minutes, the world's coming to an end. So number one is protect it. And then number two is to feed it. Number two is to find as much clean, clear water as you possibly can flush through it on an ongoing and regular basis. And so I consider the feeding of my mind like a race. And it's a race between everybody else in the world. How often and how abundantly can I feed my mind positive and instructional and inspiring messages? And so I suggest every time you are driving in your car, my car does not move without gas or some sort of instructional CD going. Some CDs I've listened to 60, 80 times. The Challenge to Succeed by Jim Rohn, I've listened to that thing 80 times by now. Same thing over and over again. I'm not even really listening to the message, but it's elevating my mind anyway. So while you exercise or work out, is a great time. Feed the mind, feed the mind. While you walk the dogs is a great time to feed your mind. Now, if you're lazy, you can walk the dogs like this as long as you got your personal development on. Really lazy, make the damn dog drive itself. You sit in the passenger seat, make sure you're feeding your mind. Brian Tracy also taught me this E to E ratio. What separates the 5% who are wealthy and the 95% who are not. That 95% spend their spare time on entertainment. The 5% spend the majority of their spare time on education. This is the great divide between the haves and the have-nots.
They have a team, Darren Hardy. The best investment you can possibly make for your own economic future is in your own personal development. Join us again next week on the HMO Property Show. And remember, every master was once a disaster, every winner was once a beginner.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.